It's 2 minutes after 8 o'clock. Good morning and thank you very much for joining us. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're broadcasting from Nairobi on 94.4. We're in Mombasa on 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, and 97.7 in Malindi. We also live stream the show every morning on Spice FM KE Facebook. We are on YouTube and our YouTube channel is Spice FM KE. Our website is www.spicefm.co.ke. Join the conversation on Twitter. Tag us. Our Twitter handle is @SpiceFMKE. And of course, our Twitter hashtag is The Situation Room. Joining us now in the next 1 hour, for the next 1 hour, will be Paul Mwangi. He's one of the joint secretaries of the BBI task force. And thank you very much for coming, sir.
Thank you, Eric.
And congratulations. I think everybody was telling you congratulations yesterday, so now let's steal the shine.
It's good to still hear it. It's good to keep hearing it.
Yeah, congratulations on the work that you did, coming up with the report. We've had an occasion to study the report, 256 pages of it. 156 pages of it.
Eric added another 100 pages.
I had another 100.
I think because of the annexures.
The 100 now will include the recommendations.
Kila kitu ingine huko nyuma. So now let's start by actually looking at a handshake happened in March 2018. And then, of course, you were there. And when the handshake was happening, you were among the people. Looking on is Paul Mwangi. And then, of course, the task force was established and you were given a mandate to go around the country and hear from the people and then compile that into a report and present it to the two principals. First of all, it took you quite a while to actually come up with that report. And at some point, there was a lot of speculation on when is the report coming up. It's coming up next week. No, they've pushed it by a month. They've pushed it by 2 months. What was happening during that period?
First, in terms of the delay, we did have a problem starting, largely because when the handshake happened, it was nothing that was planned. And everybody had to now start operating around the fact that it has happened. So even in terms of setting up structures for the task force to operate, trying to get it money to work, that took some time. Then when we started, we had been given a year, and we decided that we were going to try and congest everything in that year. And we had intended to go and see the people according to regions, so that we'll go to a particular region and call people maybe from 4 counties. And in our discussion, we thought if we are going to deal with inclusivity, we must start with inclusivity even on the way we work. And we decided we are going to travel to all the 47 counties. So that meant 1 year was no longer enough. And we wrote to the appointing authority and we said, we want to make this decision. It will require that at some point you're going to give us some extra months. And we said they were willing to do so. And therefore, we started from the plan of making sure that we were going to visit every county. And what we would do, we'd go to a county in the evening, spend the night there, get the feel of, see who we can see in the area, and then host the meeting the next day. And so that we made sure we slept in every county and that we held a meeting in every county.
All right. So the reason then that took you a while to
consumed now the extra
time.
5 months that we did.
All right. So then the report was presented to the president yesterday, the day before yesterday. It was presented to us yesterday. And we've seen some of the recommendations in it, and that's what we'll be discussing as we go along. So I'm going to allow now my co-host to shoot the first question.
Well, actually, before we discuss the content, I think we can pick up where we left off before you joined us, which is the likelihood of implementation with this report. We had a very skeptical view from Eric, where he's mentioned numerous...
excuse me.
And myself as well.
Hands up. Hands up.
Yes.
Where they mentioned numerous reports and recommendations that have been published and given to the Kenyan people previously, and nothing has been done about them, most notably the TJRC, of course. So why should we as Kenyans believe that this will be implemented?
If you look at our report, we had something we call notable issues. And in the notable issues, we dealt with where we are coming from, which is one of the things we had been told to do. And for instance, we observed that Kenyans don't trust their leaders. We observed that leaders have let us down, and Kenyans feel very let down by their leaders. We said that Kenyans love sweeping things under the carpet. So even before we start dealing with the implementation, we are already saying that we have this culture of not getting things done.
Mistrust.
And we said Kenya has a serious trust deficit. So that is one of the things that we are asking that Kenyans must address. Not just the leaders, but Kenyans themselves must address. And even as we are looking at and demanding that implementation be done, we must begin from the point that we do have that that problem among ourselves. Secondly, the BBI process is also a political process. The one thing you can't forget about how BBI came up is that there was a handshake, and it is the handshake that made the two leaders feel, now that we are talking, and now that we are beginning to build these relationships, what is it that we can do to start doing things we could not do when we were fighting?
Sure.
So yes, the TGRC and all those other reports were there. Some of them are bogged down in the political differences that were there. Now that the political differences are being patched up, let's begin to look again at all the things that have affected us and see how we can make them right. So that political process involves also now trying to make sure that everybody else comes on board, and that will inform implementation. So we handed in our report. You first must find out now, as you hand in the report, do other people accept it? And from yesterday, it's very clear there's a lot of goodwill for it. That goodwill will inform how the implementation will be done. And I think that's when the opportunity even came that we are going to have to make this bigger in terms of getting a bigger national conversation, because it's very clear that people have accepted that we can have this conversation. It possibly could have been different if we had presented the report and immediately what we would have had was a political fallout, because that then totally changes the nature of implementation.
The dynamics of it.
The dynamics of
so
the
now
implementation.
from the kind of positive vibe that you've received in the last 2 days, what is it that we should expect next?
I can only say this I can only analyze from a personal view that the kind of goodwill I saw yesterday means that people will want more addressed. People will start thinking that there's so much goodwill here that I would want to bring some issues also to be addressed within this setup. And therefore, when the issue of the national conference, the national dialogue kicks off, you can expect that there will possibly issues that will come in that might not be in that report, which some people feel that if they brought them, they could be addressed and resolved within this setup.
So what you're saying is that we expect now the political leadership, especially now the appointing authority, the president and the former prime minister and the top leadership of government, to sit together and start deciding on the next steps. National dialogue was mentioned by the president yesterday, but the date is not clear, is not set, and the formula of actually bringing people, ensuring that this dialogue happens, has not been set. So we expect it to come from them. Is that what you're saying? It
would come from them, but now that there's this goodwill, of course they would want to consult everybody else. Previously, I am sure they have a mind of where they want to go with this. But that is now going to be informed by the new goodwill and by the new people who want to be involved, so that you don't come and you expect me to be part of your process. You've already made decisions of what you want me to get into. I want to feed into that, and I want you to hear me. Maybe I don't like the idea of having a conference, or there's a way in which I would want us to handle that conference. You don't
want it to be prescriptive.
Yes, and you want it to come from as a consensus among all the players who are going to come in.
Makes sense, yeah.
So what you're saying, if I'm to understand you, is that you don't want to squander the goodwill by ensuring that even dissenting voices are heard.
Yes. And there are people who came and said, I like the idea, but there are things I don't like. And if we're going to go ahead, we must even have a forum in which those dissenting voices must be heard.
But is it ever possible to include every dissenting voice and every dissenting perspective?
It is not possible, but even as the way you reject a dissenting voice matters a lot. Because if people feel that you respect the fact that they had a different view,
give them the opportunity to be heard.
And you give them an opportunity to be heard, but the overall majority of people feel that their idea is not a good idea, I think they would move ahead with and respect the
So what you're saying is that this process that you're talking about, instead of just writing it down in a report, you actually want to put it into practice by showing the very thing that you're saying in your report, that the processes that you use are exactly what you're proposing.
And that's why I said that as we started, we said we could have finished earlier.
Yes.
But when we thought that we had going to be telling Kenyans about inclusivity, and there will be some Kenyans out there saying, "You're telling me about inclusivity. You didn't even come to my county. You didn't even talk to me." So we have to put in practice those ideals that we are that we are aspiring for, even in the way we get around doing things ourselves.
Now that you've got the report and you've had time to reflect on it, what do you think will bring more discussion?
Of course, the political issues, always the political issues, unfortunately.
Like?
All the structure, the chair of the executive. I think
That's
the general. I think generally everybody is accepting that we can go in that direction. It's when you get to the nitty-gritty, when you go to drafting the laws and what operates how. That's where the debate usually will lie.
Of course, you were listening to our conversation before you joined us, and you heard, and Jerry has said, the kind of skepticism that we're raising, and it's based on our historical issues. Yes, you've addressed that by saying one of the things that the BBI report is also addressing is the fact that Kenyans have lost trust in their leadership. And this is where we are. Among the things of us addressing that trust in our leadership is now you're telling us we have left it to the hands of the leadership to ensure that we move forward. They gave you a clear mandate. They gave you clear timelines, right? On this is who you are. This is your mandate. This is your timeline by which time we expect you to give us a report. Now we are leaving it to, for them to find time and sit down and discuss and find consensus on how to now hold a conversation going forward. Is it going to be a national convention like a Bomas 3, or is it going to be at county level, 47 of them? Is it?
We didn't just say that about leaders and say that Kenyans are the good guys, because we said even as Kenyans we have a problem. One of the notable issues said that we said the problem with us is our software, not hardware. And what's wrong with us Kenyans is more about our attitudes and behaviors rather than the environment and circumstances. Because this is possibly the first time that people are getting engaged at this level, even at the submission of a report. Usually people they just move on. And in fact, we say that in Kenya, there is no tomorrow. Kenya is just about today. And that's not about the leaders. It's about us. So it's a wholesome obligation, not just for the leaders to make sure that they push this forward, but also for us to get engaged and for them to know.
And push to make sure that they get it forward.
Because leaders follow people because they are created by people. So if people seriously show that they have an interest in this and they want particular things done, leaders usually have no choice. They have to do them.
So are we saying that if there's no interest then, if we see that people are not putting their interest forward by being now proactive, debating this, showing their interest, that this too could go under the water?
Well, it's not a Kenyan thing. It's a human thing. Why I don't think anybody would get involved in chasing things that people are not interested in. That I don't think would happen in anywhere.
You don't think the political elite might keep this going because it benefits them one way or another? Whether or not Kenyans are interested in this?
As I said, the basis of everything, basis of politics, basis of leadership is about it's about the interests of the people. And if we show, and I think Kenyans have shown that they want this and they want it to move forward, the leaders have to respond to that.
Can I ask a question with regards to your consultations that you had at regional levels and with the different people who were involved in recommendations and so on, your consultations? Were they involved, these are the 700 people that you interviewed and spoke to, were they involved in the actual solutions, or they were just talking about the problems?
Firstly, they would talk about what their view of the problem was, although usually would encourage them and say, we have told you what the problem is. So let's not spend too much time discussing the problem,
right?
So that you don't have people come and tell you how they gave a specific bribe. That might not matter.
Sure.
Maybe we need to get your feeling about the problem and what kind of solution. You might not have a specific solution, but what kind of solution would you want to see?
So the recommendations have some sense of what people feel.
It has a sense of
it's not just the problems. The recommendations too, the solutions are owned by Kenyans, so to speak.
I will give you an example. When we started debating among ourselves on the issues of devolution and how expensive it has become, we went to the field with the mind that you can actually reduce counties. By the time we got halfway,
shock on you.
Shock on it was very clear. Do not dare. Well, everybody will agree and say, yeah,
it's expensive.
It's expensive. Actually, reduce them. but don't touch mine.
All right. Everybody else.
Everybody thought it was a good idea if they could be reduced, but not when rat reduction included affecting their own county. And so that was a reality check. So by the time we now came back,